Hey everybody, it's Gomlet and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'll be playing another premiere draft of Amonkhet Remastered. Switched the upload schedule around a little bit so I could fit one more Amonkhet Remastered draft in here because the format is pretty cool. So we're going to have the Dominar United Early Access event tomorrow, and then we'll have the Dominar United Draft Guide the day after that. But without further ado, let's take a peek at our first pack. A few really powerful options to go with here. We have Edifice of Authority, which is basically Icy Manipulator. It's going to lock down an attacker every turn. After you've done that 3 times, it'll lock down an attacker or blocker and shut off activated abilities every turn. So this is an incredibly powerful card that fits into any deck in the format. Little better in slower decks, because the aggro decks don't get to stop blockers until 3 turns after they've used this, but it's still great there too. Cut to Ribbons is excellent removal because it's removal and a late game win condition with that huge life loss there. And then there's Trial of Solidarity, which is super good in aggro decks. So I'm going to take Cut to Ribbons here. I'm just going to do a little bit of a rare draft there. I think it is the strongest card in the pack. Edifice of Authority is probably a better first pick though, because it fits into more decks. But I think when you are ending up in like a black-red deck, Cut to Ribbons is going to be more powerful than Edifice of Authority. And it is also more powerful in just an aggressive strategy. And luckily for us, we get past a card that is going to synergize quite well with Cut to Ribbons. As I said before, this card's going to be great in a more aggressive strategy, and On-Crop Crasher is one of the most aggressive cards in the set. 3 mana for a 3/2 haste, and you can exert it when it attacks, so basically keep it tapped during your next turn in order to shut off a blocker. So it just gets in there, gets a lot of damage in early. As soon as they have a blocker that's too big, you can just keep locking down one of their blockers, keeping that out of the game. So On-Crop Crasher is going to be the pick for me here. There are other sweet cards in the pack. Gust Walker is a great one. 2 mana 2/2 that just gets in and can start exerting once your opponent has good blockers on the ground to get some damage in the skies. That is one of the best cards in this pack. Cartouche of Strength is another one of the best cards in the pack. Green does not have a lot of removal in the format, and the cartouches are all great. Ruthless Sniper is really good in a cycling deck, and Shimmer Scale Drake is good in any blue deck, so a really powerful pack there. But we're going to roll with the On-Crop Crasher to go with our Cut to Ribbons, and now we'll probably stay in Rakdos here with Cartouche of Ambition. All of the cartouches are pretty sweet, because they're all pretty good value just at face value, giving a creature +1/+1 lifelink and an opposing creature -1/-1 counter. Already a pretty good deal for 3 mana, and if you happen to pick up any of the trials, then it's going to be really good. The trials all have a good enter the battlefield effect and then come back to your hand whenever you play a cartouche. So cartouches are pretty sweet, and I'm going to take this here. Definitely the best card in red or black out of this pack. However, there are 2 really nice off-color cards, actually 3 of them. Oasis Ritualist is phenomenal in any ramp deck in the format. This card lets you go from playing a 4-drop on turn 4 to a 7-drop on turn 5, so excellent card for the green ramp decks. It also lets you exert to get 2 off-color mana, so it can hit double-colored off-color splashes. But there's also the blue Cartouche, which is great, and Fan Bearer, which is great as well, so really sweet pack there. But we're going to go Cartouche of Ambition. Things are looking pretty nice for us in our colors, because a Magma Spray pick 4 is a decent sign in red here. 1 mana for 2 damage to a creature, and you exile that creature instead of putting it in your opponent's graveyard, so it's going to not let them use any graveyard synergies, which is definitely good, because there are quite a few of those in this set. There's cards to return cards from your graveyard to your hand, as well as the Embalm mechanic, allowing you to recast your creatures from grave, so exiling them is super sweet. It's going to be Magma Spray as the best black or red card here, but a close second is Desert of the Glorified. All of the deserts are phenomenal, making sure that you don't flood out as often by giving you a land that can cycle later in the game. There's also some cards that care about specifically having some deserts on your board. So since we already have Cartouche of Ambition and Magma Spray, I'm not going to take Lethal Sting super highly. That being said, there's not too much going on in red or black here, so I might still take it. This is one of the weaker removal spells in black, simply because you are having to make your field a little weaker, especially in an aggressive strategy, but it can destroy any creature. That being said, we have Wasteland Scorpion, which is a fine Death Toucher that can cycle. We also have Desert Ceradon. I prefer this kind of cycler. I'm not a huge fan of Bloodlust and Cider. I think I'm going to go Desert Ceradon. I do like the cards that manage to be late game plays and cyclers if you don't have the mana for them to help you out in the early game. Just replace them with something else. Alright, nothing great in red or black here. We have Tormenting Voice and Trespasser's Curse. The best card in this pack, in my opinion, is Oasis Ritualist by far. This card is just absolutely nuts in ramp strategy, so I'm just going to scoop that up if it's going to be going pick 6 here. There's other great ones too, though. Aerial Guide is great in a deck with a lot of big ground creatures. putting those into the sky can do a lot of damage. And Avon of Enduring Hope's a pretty nice stabilizer. Gain a few life and then have a nice big flyer to start getting in with. But I'm going to take Ritualist. That card is definitely the best card in that pack. Alright, and now the best card in this pack is probably Final Reward. Although Cartouche of Solidarity is pretty good too. But that is in white and we are not. So we're just going to take Final Reward. 5 mana, instant speed, exile a creature. Already spoke on why exile is pretty good with all the graveyard synergies in this format, and instant speed removal, of course, is also pretty good. Not much here. We're not going to play a Scarab Feast unless we get a ton of cycling synergies, because then we'll just play this as 1 mana, draw a card. 1 mana, trigger all of our cycling synergies. There's not really anything off-color. The best off-color card is probably Beneath the Sands, but honestly, the desert is just better if we're going green. This is a fine ramp card, but you can get better stuff like Ritualist in this format. I'll just take a Scarab Feast, honestly. There's not a lot going on in that pack. Really late blue and white desert, but don't think I'm speculating on one of those when I can just have a Lethal Sting in case I don't get enough removal and I need it. It's unlikely to make the cut right now because we already have Final Reward, Cut, and Magma Spray. But more likely to make the cut than the Zealot of the God Pharaoh. Card just does not have a great stat line for its mana cost, just a little low on toughness. Festering Mummy's fine early game. Thorn Moloch is fine if you have a lot of tricks. Supernatural Stamina is a fine trick, but Shimmer Scale Drake's by far the best card in this pack. 5 mana, 3/4 flyer, you can cycle early game. Not that excited by either of these. These are all filler, except Drake is just incredible, so I'm just going to take Drake. Take another speculative pick there. Alright, Bone Slasher versus Avon. Again, Bone Slasher is really not that exciting. It's going to be a really speculative pack one. Get a little bit of every color. Just in case we open an off-color rare, now we have a little bit of a start to any other color. But if we just open like a good on-color rare, we'll just stick to the Rakdos stuff that we're doing here. Forsake the Worldly's mildly main deckable since you can cycle it. Liliana's Defeat is not. Alright, what do we open up? No really good rare. We did open a really good uncommon though, Vizier of the Anointed, if I want to push into blue for that. This allows you to search your library for an Eternalize or Embalm card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. So basically a 2-for-1 right there because you can recast your Eternalize or Embalm card. And when you do, you also draw a card. So a 3-for-1 if the Vizier is still around when you do that. Really, really powerful if you have some Eternalize or Embalm. Shefet Monitor is also really powerful in a ramp deck. It's just a 6 mana, 6/5 if you got the mana for it, and if you don't, it puts a land into play and draws a card for 4 mana, which is really, really good. So maybe Shefet Monitor and Oasis Ritualist is a pretty exciting start to maybe some kind of Jund ramp deck here. Vizier's probably a little better in a vacuum, but we have no Eternalize or Embalm right now, but we already do have a little bit of ramp stuff in green. I'm going to take the Shefet Monitor. If I wanted to stick to Rakdos, Gravedigger's the best card. And Gravedigger's not even that absurd in this format, it's just fine. Now we do see another Oasis Ritualist. Yeah, I think I like pivoting into some kind of green ramp deck here. We could also play Sunset Pyramid, that'll fit into anything as a solid card draw engine, but double Ritualist plus 1 Shefet Monitor. Pretty great reason to be in green, I think, so I'm going to go for that. We'd love to wheel this Desert of the Fervent. We've seen a lot of deserts wheeling. Sadly, they've been in white and blue, though. I could completely pivot to green-blue ramp if I take like Vizier here, but I think it's got to be Ritualist. Sunset Pyramid, though, also pretty great. Okay. I mean, Plaque and Red looking open. On-Crop Crasher, Final Reward, and Open Fire, so probably like Jund ramp. Something strange here. We just pick up some big green cards for the end game. Just ramping into a big Ribbons is cool, too. Pretty low on creatures right now, although Open Fire is really good removal, so it's kind of hard to pass that up for On-Crop Crasher. But I might do it anyway. Final Reward is also great removal. Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs is a solid 2-drop, just really big blocker. I have no 1 or 2 mana creatures right now, but there's no 1 or 2 mana creatures in this pack that I want. It would be another 3 mana creature, I guess would be my second. We're so low on creatures, but there's no way we're aggressive enough for On-Crop Crasher to be great. I'm actually going to take Final Reward here. I feel like that's better removal for like a ramp sort of deck. And I think because of our really low creature count, we probably are just like removal heavy ramp. We'll go with Evolving Wilds here to help fix our 3 colors. Yeah, we've got a super low creature count, so we're just going to use cheap removal in the early game like Magma Spray and Cut. It's going to be an interesting deck. It's looking like we were going to try to go aggro at the start, but I didn't see a lot of really good cheap creatures, and I just kind of took removal over the ones we did see, so looks like we're pushing to a much slower, grindier ramp deck. Puncturing Blow's fine, but we already have double Final Reward, Cut, Lethal Sting, Cartouche, Magma Spray. Don't think it's necessary here over just a Desert, which is great if we're flooding out. Again, there's a 1-mana creature here. It's a single one, but I'm just going to take a Desert. I really like that card. And that 2-mana creature is just fine. The creature in here is 5 mana, not really what we're looking for. We want 2s and 3s, so I'm just going to take another Desert. Although this is a quite solid creature. Vigilance and Reach 4/4 does take over the board. Yeah, this draft pod is passing deserts pretty late, so I can probably get them later in the packs. I'm probably supposed to be taking the creatures over the lands just because of how highly the players in this pod are taking the deserts, which is not that highly. So yeah, I'll take the good creature here. Ceradon's actually pretty good too. Make creatures unable to block if you've got a good desert count. But I like that Sharpshooters plays the offensive and defensive at the same time. That's pretty nice. We've got no cheap creatures. I'll just take a Desert Ceradon here. I mean, I guess there's Thresher Lizard, which is mildly cheap, but I'll just take another big ramp creature. Another Desert in here over Blur of Blades and not much else. This only kills a 1 toughness creature, so we'll take Desert. It's fine in an aggressive strategy because you're damaging your opponent as well. Now we easily take another Bitterbow Sharpshooters. Cartouche of Zeal that I'm probably not playing, but maybe I get a bunch of Trials. Unlikely. I'm definitely not playing Sunscorched Desert. That's a super late River Hoopu, but the mana is pretty awkward for trying to fit that in here. But it is a really, really nice activated ability. Really good mana sink for the green-blue ramp decks. I just don't think it's going to make the cut here. Although it's possible we just go some weird 5-color brew. If we get enough Ritualist-style cards, tap for mana of any color. Crasher looks real awkward in here. Does not look like a Crasher deck, nor does it look like a Pitiless Vizier deck. Although we've got a few Cyclers. Maybe that'll happen. It's going to be interesting. Our non-creatures are pretty great. There's some filler in here, but not as much filler as there is in the creature front. Could really use some of those like 2-mana 0/4 walls and stuff. I don't like the 2-mana 2/1. Even if I need more cheap creatures, I just really don't want a 2-mana 2/1. Just take a Gilded Ceradon. Deliverance probably getting cut. Cheetah might make it in just because I'm low on 2 and 3 mana creatures still. Okay, another cheap removal spell, Open Fire, is probably pretty necessary with how the curve looks. I think I'm going to take that over a Greater Sandworm, and we'll hope to wheel that. If the Sandworm doesn't wheel, there's still a Feral Prowler for a 2-drop creature that is, I think, pretty likely to wheel, so we can actually play some creatures to block with early game. And then we could have a 3rd Sharpshooters or Scrapper or On-Crop Crasher. Those don't make that much sense in this deck, but they are good cards in aggro. I'm just going to take Open Fire. Get a Burn spell. It's going to be a weird one. A slow Jund deck. I'm really going to Jund them out. We're just going to play around a bit and hope to survive. Okay, we've got another Desert of the Indomitable. We've got a Cartouche of Strength, but with a low creature count, this isn't guaranteed to be removal, and I think I'm doing pretty well on removal. We've got a Bone Picker, which we can potentially play for cheap if we've, we can play a Lethal Sting for 3 and then Bone Picker for 1, or an Open Fire for 3, then Bone Picker for 1, or a Cut for 2 and Bone Picker for 1. I think I like Bone Picker here, although Greater Sandworm is nice too. I don't think we're a great Cartouche of Strength deck. Again, just the low creature count messing that up. Could take Scattered Groves. Kind of like better than Desert of the Indomitable, basically the same thing. Just a green cycling land. Okay. Am I playing a 2-mana 2/2? Don't think I'm more likely to play the 2-mana 2/2 with basically no abilities than the 2-mana 2/2 that makes each player discard a card. 3-mana 2/2 Death Touch is kind of tempting. Although we're primarily green-red now, it looks like we can have the black splash later on. I don't like a Washer Cultivator. It's one of my least favorite ramp cards. It's a lot of mana commitment and a pretty slow card. I'm just going to take a 2-mana 2/2. So I have something to block with throughout the game, potentially. Another 2-mana 2/2 with no text. Probably take a Desert over another one of those. Definitely not a Pathmaker or a Pitiless Vizier. Take our first red Desert. Kenra Eternal. Cartouche of Strength. Now I'm getting a little more creatures. We could try a Cartouche of Strength. And I think I'm cutting down on the black a bit here. Green-red at the core with black as a splash for late-game final rewards. Or ribbons as a finisher off the splash. Ronus' Stalwart for another 2-drop, or Fervent Paincaster is a very good 3-drop. You can exert this, deal 1 damage to something. It is low toughness, which I don't like, but it does sit there shooting your opponent for 1 no matter what. I think I'm going to take Paincaster and hope I can get some good plays out of the exert for damage to a creature. Not a combat trick kind of deck. Not a deck that's going to play a 1-mana black card. We'll just take a Hooded Brawler or a Synchronized Strike, but again, I don't think I'm really a combat trick deck with our curve. Love to take another Desert of the Indomitable, but green-red is the core of this deck, and I need more early game blockers, so we're going to take the 2-mana red blocker, a 1/3. We could prowess this if we cast an instant speed card, maybe get a nice 2-for-1. If my opponent has a couple 2/2s they attack with both, I Magma Spray one of them and turn this into a 2/4 blocker. That could be a magical Christmas land play, but it could be a great one. We see a Feral Prowler for another early game blocker. Yeah, I only have 2 right now. We'll have to take Feral Prowler over Greater Sandworm, sadly, but now we look like we actually have a reasonable deck if we cut the blue cards and lower the black cards a bit. Lower the number of black cards. Another green Cartouche, Beneath the Sands or Sandworm. I think I can take the Sandworm now. Another big late game win condition. Sidewinder Naga actually does make the cut here, I think, with 3 deserts. Basically a 3-mana 4/2 trample. Another 2-mana 2/2, sure. Don't know if we'll play all of those, but maybe. Okay, so we kind of just cut all the random black cards and just have the black splash for final rewards mainly, and for ribbons from our grave. What's really nice about the Ritualists is, again, their ability to exert and hit double black just all by themselves means we won't even need a black source on the board to cast ribbons if we have a Ritualist. So I think I'm cutting down to just 2 final rewards. 1 Swamp and Evolving Wilds. So 1 Swamp, 2 Ritualist, Evolving Wilds kind of thing for these final rewards. And then obviously we have ribbons as well. I could see 2 Swamps though, 3 black sources when you don't count Ritualists, because the problem with Ritualists, of course, is that they can die. We have Shefet Monitor as well that can pull out a Swamp from our deck. I think 2's pretty good. We might not even need 2 because of Shefet Monitor plus Evolving Wilds, but I think we can justify that. We need to cut 4 cards out of this deck, so the 4 weakest cards. Cartouche of Zeal is really just for aggro. And again, I think I look more mid-rangey or slow here, so I don't think I'm a Cartouche of Zeal deck. I don't love the Dissenter's Deliverance's main deck. You can, of course, just cycle them away if your opponent doesn't have artifacts out, but 99% of the time, this card's just in your deck as 1-mana draw card. Although it's probably better than Tormenting Voice to just cycle that away. This is good against some cards that do fit into literally any deck that gets to draft them. The cards are Sunset Pyramid at uncommon. That is the card draw engine. The Edifice of Authority at common is kind of like removal spell every turn sort of thing, where it locks down your best creature. So these are some annoying, very powerful artifacts that would be good to blow up. And of course there are some bomb rares this can kill, like God Pharaoh's Gift, the 7-mana artifact that keeps returning a creature from grave every turn. So it's honestly not the end of the world if we keep it main deck. Maybe I cut some creatures over them. Because again, worst case scenario, I just cycle them for 1 mana. And that can be the plan the majority of the time. Okay. For creatures, we're cutting some of these 3s, I guess. I don't love the Watchers of the Dead, but I want to have 2-mana creatures, because there are some aggressive strategies in this format. Pouncing Cheetah does not seem very good. On-Crop Crasher doesn't seem great in this deck, but it's still one of our most powerful 3-drops, even if it's not good in the deck, so maybe Hooded Brawler or On-Crop Crasher. Cut 2 cards out of everything I put aside here. Currently have 18 creatures. That is more than enough for this deck. I think I'll cut the Cheetah. I guess I do have a mildly aggressive curve. If I just keep all that in there. And then I just cut like 1 Deliverance and I still have like 1. For maybe I live in Magical Christmas Land and I draw the Deliverance the one time I play against God Pharaoh's Gift. Again, not a big deal if I draw it at the wrong time. It's not that bad main deck. I could see putting an 18th land in here. But the plus side against that is that I can just cycle those cards at these mana costs. And then this looks like a 17 land curve. If you discount that. The fact that we do want to cast these late game. I think I'm going to keep 17 lands in here. Because one of our non-land cards, Druid's Deliverance, is almost always getting cycled to dig for another land. To just get it out of the way, get towards the land. Shefet Monitor will get cycled a lot of the time to literally always get a land. And then Desert Ceradon is another card I'm very okay with cycling. The only one I'm going to be a little sad about cycling is Greater Sandworm. But like the Ceradons and the Monitors, I'm pretty okay cycling these the majority of the time. And Dissenter's Deliverance, I'm 100% okay with cycling this 99% of the time. So the way you can think about it, if you have a card in your deck that is cycling almost 100% of the time, is basically, instead of having a ratio of a 40 card deck, which the 40 card deck would mean we'd have 23 non-lands and 17 lands, if I'm cycling Dissenter's Deliverance 100% of the time, that basically just means that I have a 39 card deck instead, which means it's a 39 card deck of 22 non-lands and 17 lands, which ups the percentage of lands versus non-lands by a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. But when you stack up Deliverance plus Ceradons that are getting cycled like that, that's how you can get that percentage a little bit skewed up so it feels like slightly more than 17 lands in the deck. And of course, Double Ritualist is very, very helpful for that with just straight up ramp. Yeah, I think I'm going to run the deck like this. We do want to double check our mana here, make sure Arena's not losing its minds here. We've got 11 green sources, 11 green cards, 9 red cards, and 3 black cards. So 7 green sources, 6 red sources, and Evolving Wilds and 2 swamps. It's 1 more green source than red source. Probably fine. I could see running more green sources because green gives us Oasis Ritualists and Shefet Monitor. But red does give us Magma Spray Cut and Open Fire in the early game, which are all very important cards to have the mana for as early as possible. So yeah, probably keep them pretty even with the 7-6 split here. Maybe cut 1 swamp just to play 1 more forest. Go to 8 green sources and 6 red sources. Kind of like being able to cast my final rewards more consistently, especially if my ritualists just get shot down by removal. So I think I'm cool with the double swamp, just to have a little redundancy there. Yeah, I think I actually like the mana base that Arena presented us with here, so I think that's going to be the deck. The final Amonkhet Remastered deck here is going to be a Jund ramp deck, mainly green-red ramp, with the black splash for some nice removal, some final rewards, and a potential finisher with ribbons. So pretty spicy stuff to end off the Amonkhet Remastered drafts. We'll see how it does as we head into the gameplay. Here we are, game 1, we're on the play. The mana's a little awkward here if I'm being honest, because we've got 2 black cards and I'm probably going to have to Evolving Wilds for a red source. Suppose I have 6 red sources in the deck, so I could just play a tapped Desert of the Indomitable turn 1, see if we draw the red source turn 2. If we don't, we just crack Evolving Wilds. If we do, I can just go Mountain Feral Prowler. I think I want to wait on this Evolving Wilds to see if we can draw into that red source naturally, and we can, so very glad I waited on that. We'll drop a Feral Prowler turn 1. Our opponent's got the Bloodlust Insider just screaming at the sky there, like his buddy in the background. And that means they're going to hit us really aggressively here, especially with turn 2 Gust Walker. They can exert that to hit us for 3 damage in the sky every other turn, so that is probably going to draw removal from our deck. Can play the Paincaster this turn and still crack Evolving Wilds next turn to have our final reward mana turn 5. It's probably better to just hold Feral Prowler back than it is to get in for 1 single point of damage, because I could see my opponent playing a 3-1 or something and giving it haste with Insider, where I'd be very happy to block it with Feral Prowler, but a little less happy to block it with Paincaster, since the Paincaster could just shoot and kill a 3-1 anyway. Menace card is less exciting, because I can... say if they exert this, they get to kill both of these if I double block. Yeah. I can trade both my creatures into this to just get it off the board, but then Paincaster's gone, and Paincaster can kill Insider here. Taking some painful attacks in the future, but I think I'd go to 13 here. With double final reward in hand, I think I do. And Cartouche of Strength is a pretty sick draw. Now we can kill the Gust Walker and the Insider, and their only creature on board is tapped down for the turn. That is very good. Very, very good. So now we have the black source for our next 2 removal spells. We have the Cartouche of Strength to kill the Gust Walker. I guess I could have killed the Scrapper if I fight and shoot it. But I'm just going to shoot the Insider. And now that they don't have haste on their next creature, we will go ahead and get the Prowler damage in. Catcher's Avenger. Paincaster's going to be sweet against that. Happy to see that. Now we can final reward. Oh, never mind. They've made it 2 toughness, so Paincaster's not going to do anything to that. Alright, still happy about the double final reward here. Feral Prowler's big enough to make Avenger have to exert to get in here, so I'm just going to hold it back. Force the exert here to slow them down. Probably final reward the Menace creature, though, because it's just going to be harder to block. They are going to exert here, so I'll definitely exile that. They didn't exert the Catcher's Avenger. So we're just taking a trade here on board. I'm going to go for that block first and see if I can... yeah, see if I can ruin their combat trick here instead, which I can. Take the Scrapper damage. We know Scrapper's not attacking us this turn unless they can untap it out of nowhere, so let's just send everybody in and drop the Ceradon. Ceradon gets to shut off a blocker every time it attacks. Ceradon actually did end up being pretty solid in this deck. We actually do have a creature curve now. Honored Crop Captain, pretty aggressive card. Not that scary though. We are at 5, but I can exile Scrapper and block that pretty easily. Block that with Prowler. Yeah. Shut off the block and send these 2 in. Holding up Prowler to block the Captain, and final reward to exile the Scrapper. And then we should just have lethal the turn after this. Alright, they're threatening lethal on board, but unless they top deck something that can counter a final reward, we're good here. Cannot think of much that could counter final reward. Looks like they had impeccable timing to kill my Feral Prowler, but we've got 7 damage on board against the 6 life opponent, and that is going to be a victory in Game 1. Here we are in Game 2 with an unfortunately unkeepable hand mana-wise. This one is even worse. Although we get to cycle a Sandworm to try to get to the red sources. Got a Naga that'll be a 4-2. Much as I dislike this hand, I really dislike mulliganing to 5. That is where your win rate drops significantly. So we're just gonna hope for the best here. We are on the draw. We are on the draw here, so we've got time to hit a red source. Probably should cycle this greater sandworm so we know we can get to like sharpshooters and stuff at least. So I think I'm gonna do that during my opponent's end step, as much as I don't want to. This is a situation where we almost definitely should. Okay, we did get to the red source now, thankfully. Drop a Sidewinder Naga, and that will be the bait that we use to get the Wasteland Scorpion off the board, so that we don't have to trade one of our big creatures into that. Unless they're going to use a removal spell on this. Alright. Removal spell on the Naga. Suppose we get to drop a Nimbleblade Kenra now, which unfortunately it's not attacking very well against the Scorpion. Gilded Ceradon could be a pretty big play for us here, being able to shut off the Scorpion as a blocker, so if we trade into something, we trade into the 4/4 at least. Suppose it's more of a when than an if. When we trade into something, we'll trade into the 4/4. I never had so much to gain. And threw it all away. We'll take 6 here. And they can cast Return to Exile the creature from our grave and get a 2/2 now. It's a very nice removal spell. Well, we got double removal pretty hard this game. With our opponent curving out on the play as well. And they didn't play a 2-drop, but they've played some pretty impressive spells, mainly the sharpshooters with removal to back it up. It's looking pretty bad for us. Alright, show me your trick here. Alright, kill the 4/4. Now we're just taking a few damage each turn. I guess they get a 2/2 now as well, but we can block the 2/2 with our 1/3. Ooh, Cartouche's Strength is definitely something. I think I might even cast that and cycle Desert instead of playing the sharpshooters here. Because then I kill their 2/2 and I can trade into the Scorpion. So everything on board is dealt with by doing this. Unless they have a 2-mana trick to use in response, that would be very bad for me. Hopefully they just have a Desert in their hand or something. I'm just gonna threaten that I have open fire or something. I guess it's better to Desert here because I haven't played land for turn, just in case I draw land off the Desert. Okay, so we're gonna trade for the Scorpion. We're gonna hope that the Sharpshooters is the biggest card after everything's been dealt with. Opponent drops a land, 2 cards in hand. Ooh, one of which is Wandering Death. Yeah. It's going to be really bad for us. They get their Scorpion and their Bitterbow Sharpshooters back. Really huge 2-for-1 at this point in the game. Very good time for the Wandering Death. We'll draw into our Swamp. And an on-crop Crasher, I suppose. The Crasher gets to trade into the Scorpion. Their 4/4 doesn't have haste or anything, so I'll just play the Crasher, because if I play Bitterbow Sharpshooters this turn, I'm just not going to block anything, because I want my Sharpshooters to trade into their Sharpshooters, so we just play Crasher now, and then we do block Scorpion. Then we play Sharpshooters next turn. Not a great time for another land. But hopefully our opponent has drawn similarly, and they're just They're just holding the lands in hand here or something. I'm going to drop this. In formats with cycling, you can definitely end up with turns where you're going to cycle multiple cards in one turn, to the point where you'd want to play 2 lands, but can't. Unfortunately for us, opponent is hitting some pretty good stuff here. Can exile the sharpshooters now, only taking 1 damage. Nest of Scarabs does absolutely nothing right now, so it's kind of a dead draw, which is pretty good for us. Once the mummy dies, though, they will get a 1/1 out of the Nest of Scarabs. And if they have more -1/-1 removal, that'll work. Ronus's Monument, when they cast a creature, another creature gets +2/+2. That will make us very dead if they play another creature. But we're already dead on board, so it's another kind of do nothing. So it's not that our opponent drew massively well there in the last few turns, we kind of just hit nothing, unfortunately. The big kind of winning draw of that game feels like probably the Wander in Death there, to put my opponent ahead in cards, ahead in creatures there. Sad one there. Good game though. We'll be 1-1. Mana base still being pretty funky to us, but we can deal with it. If we hit 1 land, we've got a cartouche here, and we're on the draw again. We've seen what our 6-card hands can look like. They can just be the exact same hand with 1 less card. I know it's results-oriented thinking based on the last time that we mulliganed, making me not want to mulligan again, but I know I'm playing Watchers of the Dead, and any land in our entire deck means we get to cast Cartouche of Strength as well. If we hit a mountain, we can cast pretty much everything, just not immediately. We did hit a mountain, so we'll drop our Watchers of the Dead. Nimbleblade Kenra might have been better here, but the Watchers of the Dead threatens to block and kill the Fan Bearer, which is nice. And it threatens to block and kill a 4/2 beast. Also pretty nice. Little worried here. When your opponent plays a trial, if they play a cartouche, you're probably not going to win that game. So we're going to hope our opponent didn't manage to pick up very many cartouches in their draft. Don't think it's time to Cartouche of Strength or cut right now, so we'll just play our Nimbleblade Kenra and pass. Alright, please do not cartouche it up here. They've got 4 cards in hand. They're green-white. The green cartouche would be absolutely disgusting, because they'd get to cast a removal spell, make one of their creatures bigger, pick up their Trial of Strength to recast to play another 4/2. Okay, no cartouche yet. Very happy to see that. We've got pretty good removal for a 3/4 body. We can just cut that up. And yeah, if they don't cartouche us here, then they can't really get in on this board state right now, so I might not even have to use a removal spell on Kudu. I think I'd rather use a creature than a removal spell, if I can. So by playing Sidewinder Naga, the only way they hit us on board is if they spend some mana to tap down my Sidewinder Naga, otherwise I'll just trade it into their Kudu. Yeah, so they just drop an on-crop champion and pass turn. Pretty nice exert ability that works pretty well with Fan Bearer. They can tap 2 things down if they have nothing else to do with their mana. I think I'll go ahead and cut that, and I'm pretty happy I didn't cut yet, because that is definitely a more impressive creature than the 3/4 with no text. But I don't think I'm getting in still. Solitary Camel, good old 3/2. It'll have lifelink if they get any deserts on the board or in their grave. Well, not doing great on the draws here. I think it's probably time to cycle this Desert Ceradon then. Alright, well, at least that's castable. Any land is a great draw. Black sources are incredible draws, so Evolving Wilds, Swamps, any of that stuff, but any land does let us put Ritualist on the board, so if it doesn't get killed, we can still cast the black spells. And the ribbons, because again, Ritualist does hit the double black if we exert it. So yeah, literally any land is pretty solid here. It does not have to be a black source. Opponent is hanging out in the think tank. Trying to figure out what they want to do here. How they're going to get through my kitties. Is a Ken or a cat? It's a jackal. Jackals are more like dogs, right? Well, the Watchers are cats. And the Feral Prowler. Oh, no. Okay. Ornery Kudu is a 7/8 trample, and they can tap down 2 creatures and give their whole board vigilance. Appeal to Authority is pretty sick. Alright, they're going to tap down 2 creatures. Give the board vigilance. I can double block the 4/2. All I lose is a 1/3. But then I take 11 damage. It's obviously not ideal, but if we can kill a creature here, I think we need to. Have a 1 mana play as well. So they've got a Shed Skin, +2/+2 to target creature. That would be disgusting here. If they do have a 1 green mana play, then it would be Shed Skin for +2/+2, and if I try to double block, they Shed Skin and just kill both creatures. So I could just single block and draw a card here instead. Playing around the Shed Skin. It's probably worth it because then we know we can Cartouche of Strength with Nimbleblade Kenra next turn as well. To kill something, ooh, in an open fire, we could do it instant speed to make Kenra a better blocker. I think I'd rather open fire than Cartouche then, since I can do that at instant speed. We are down to 9 now, but as you can see, when there's not an Appeal to Authority that's just gone off, their board's not actually that threatening. 4 power, 3 power, 3 power. Whoa, they got double Appeal to Authority? Alright, well. I'm pretty sure we have to open fire right now or I'm just dead, and I still take a chunk of damage if they Authority here. Because they can Authority and tap something down with Fanbearer, so basically I'm going to have 0 blockers this turn, and I'll go to 3. That would have just been game if they put it on Kudu. Luckily for us, we had the exact right removal. The instant speed removal to not just die this turn. Alright, they're not even going to cast Authority this turn now. They're just not going to get in. That open fire put in a lot of work that turn. There's the black source for final reward at instant speed. That is probably the play. I guess they can Fanbearer stuff down here, which is not good. They Fanbearer 1 down now, then 1 down next turn. They put our board to where we only have a Kenra up, and then I could final reward to kill Kudu and Camel. Just blocking well. Which I think I'm still on hold up final reward. If they don't go for any attacks, then we're still just going to final reward in the end step. If they do, we can make the attacks bad. Yeah, if they don't go for attacks here, then we're going to... Okay, they're just going to tap both creatures. That's fine. That's 6 damage on board. So we'll let them gain the life, exile the Kudu, and then we use Cartouche of Strength to kill the Camel next turn. And then they're down to just a Fanbearer. They're green-white, so they're not going to have haste. We've got more cards than they do, so we probably can take over the long game here after this. Oh my god, triple appeal. plus X is the number of creatures you control. 3 creatures. If I exile first, they're going to do 5 damage to me total. And that'll be 2 instead of 3. I think I do final reward and then I cartouche the camel away. And then they have 0 power on board next turn. We're getting triple appeal to this game, but we're still in it. At least that feels kind of good. Kenner's the only option for this, so we put it there. The only option to win the fight. I'm not going to play around haste in the green-white deck. If they go mountain haste creature, they got it. I guess I could play around a pump spell, but for +4/+4, when they only have 1 creature down, that doesn't seem likely. I guess Shedskin would deal 3 damage to us, because +2/+2, and they remove the -1/-1 counter. We'd go to 1. So Shedskin's a little bit of a scary combat trick for them to maybe have. It looks like they don't. Okay, we're probably going to have to hold up blockers again. You tap down 2 creatures, though, with Appeal to Authority, so we need 4 blockers to actually have 2 blockers up. Just play a big blocker this turn, play our biggest play. The Gilded Ceradon. And just pass. I guess if they have a trick, they just get us, because they can... triple Appeal to Authority is so busted. Because they can just tap down, then we pass to their turn, they tap down, and then they tap down 2 more things with Authority, so if they have the +2/+2 trick, they do just kill us regardless. I guess I needed to just hold up Final Reward. Might lose because we didn't hold up Final Reward if they have the +2/+2 trick, but I'm okay with that. Lose to a minor error here in the end. It's a pretty busted deck. There's some pretty busted draws. Triple Appeal to Authority. Alright. They've got exactly enough mana if they've got the 1 mana trick here for +2/+2. Three mana, what is this? Oh, I guess they can attack both then tap Watchers because they have Vigilance. Assume this is just 1 green mana +2/+2. So what's going on? Yep, I should have just held up Final Death. We would have went to 2 life this turn, and they only have 2 cards left in their hand. We'd have all these creatures. And we might have lost because we didn't hold up Final Death. But that's fine. Definitely happens. Those are pretty absurd deck from our opponent regardless. Very good stuff from them. We fought through 3 Appeal to Authorities at least. Yikes. Alright, 1 and 2 as we head into Game 4. Alright, here we are in Game 4 on the play. Got a Watchers. So we have a blocker in the early game. We've got an Open Fire. We've got our late game plan. There's going to be a Sheffet Monitor. Sacred Cat, turn 1. Well, a 2/2 is going to pretty much stop that from doing what it wants to do. If my opponent doesn't get any way to buff it here. They are Boros. They can definitely have tricks or burn to get my Watchers out of the way. Or just buff the cat. Oketra's Avenger. Sure. Probably need to just shoot that to keep some damage off of us so we can survive to late game, because we hit a green source and then we've pretty much got the late game. We've got sharpshooters into monitor into sandworm. Turn 5, 6, 7. Probably need to shoot Avenger, but I suppose I'll wait till their turn in case they use some kind of trick. If they just exert Avenger, I'll open fire in response to that. Firebrand Archer, that's pretty fine. When they cast non-creature spells, they're dealing a damage to us. Otherwise, just a 2-1 body. Cartouche of Zeal, shut off a blocker and do a damage to us. That'll be permanently a 3-2. Well, I'll make sure the Cartouche doesn't enter the battlefield, so they don't shut off a blocker this turn, so they have to exert Avenger, which means it only hits us every other turn. Feels like that's probably... Ooh, they didn't exert it. Well, that was definitely worth it then. Just get both off the board. But we draw into the Cartouche. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to cycle the Sandworm to dig towards a green source, because I'm going to need 2 to cast it anyway. And I'm going to need 1 to play my spell next turn, so let's just cycle this right now. Uh-oh, this could be a problem. Got 8 green sources in here. Evolving Wilds, 2 deserts, and 5 forests. Right on time. Never didn't have it. There's the Bitterbow sharpshooters, and then here comes the Sheffet monitor next turn. Four cards in their hand, 4 mana on board, a single Sacred Kitty. Let's see what they're going to do here. If they attack in, it could mean they have an open fire or something for 3 damage to a creature. I'm just not going to block if they attack in. I outrace the 1/1 lifelinker by a lot. So there's no reason to put sharpshooters at risk of a combat trick. Ooh, unconventional tactics. +3/+3 and flying. Whenever they play a zombie, they get to spend 1 mana to return this from their graveyard to hand. If they can keep playing zombies here, that's going to be a big problem. And there are many zombies in white, because there are mummies in this format. And anything that embalms comes back as a zombie. So plenty of ways they could get that back. And it'll be really hard to race a 4/4 flying lifelink if they can cast that every turn. Would be pretty hard for them to play a zombie and spend the 1 to put that back in hand and spend the 3 to cast it every turn, though. Because they need to go plains and then 2 mana zombie here. So yeah, they're not going to bring unconventional tactics back. They're just going to kill our 6/5 and pass, which means we keep getting him with the Vigilant card. It is definitely not worth spending our Cartouche on the Embalm creature. The Trample is tempting, but killing the Sacred Cat doesn't do all that much. They'll just get it back, and it'll be a zombie entering their battlefield, so they'll get back the unconventional tactics as well. So killing the cat isn't that exciting, but just giving Trample kind of is. So maybe I'll end up playing a Cartouche of Strength and choosing not to fight. That is an option. You don't have to fight when you play it. Okay, or I'll just Cartouche of Strength and kill this Bloodlust Insider, I guess. Also seems fine to me. And now we've got Trample. So happy they played something for me to kill here, so I can just have a Vigilant Trample creature, which is pretty nuts. We're going to take it all and go to 10 here. If they draw removal for sharpshooters, we're pretty even at that point. A 2/4 versus some 1/1s. That is a nice draw. Let's cycle the desert. Nimble Blade Kenner, that's not horrible. Pretty good against 1/1s, so we will drop it down. Oh, they're going to use a +3/+3, or they're going to open fire my sharpshooters. Alright, you got it. Still trample over, so hit them for a lot here. still doing alright. They do get that unconventional tactics. Only one other card in their hand, though. They're down to 3, but they're going to go back up to 7 once they hit us with the flying cats. Ooh, compulsory rest being one of the cards in their hands. Pretty bad for us. Now our board state is down to just some 1/3s. They're going to gain the 4 life. The Ritualist can still tap for mana, so I'm not going to sacrifice it until I need that 2 life. Hooded Brawler was a very good draw. We can exert that, and it attacks as a 5-power creature, basically forcing them to chump it. Also, just a 3-power creature is good on this board state. And they're just going to scoop them up. They must just be flooding out over there in their hand. Pretty unfortunate. But that is going to lead us into 2 and 2 on our way into at least an average run for the final Amonkhet Remastered draft. Hopefully we can get at least one more win here. Balance things out. Alright, here we are on the play. Don't have any red sources, but Ritualist could fill that role if it's not killed, which is nice. And we don't have any red cards in hand yet anyway. See how things go here. Opponent drops a turn 1 Festering Mummy, which does trade into a Watchers of the Dead, but I'm still going to take that trade if they attack in, just to get that thing off the board, not have to worry about it trading into something better later. Fan Bearer. Very annoying card, gonna tap something down every turn, and another Festering Mummy, uh-oh. Well, this is not looking ideal now. Do I still just take that trade? I don't know, probably. Otherwise I'm just taking 2 every turn if I just keep letting them in. I'm definitely not trading a Hooded Brawler into 1. Sure. Another Watchers of the Dead? I'll play that instead of a Hooded Brawler, and that'll threaten to block the next mummy. Wayward Servant, so as they play zombies we get drained for a life. They are not going to attack, they don't want to take the trade this time. If I crack this for a mountain, I know I can Ceradon next turn, even if they have a removal spell in their hand to try to shoot Ritualist. I think I'm still just going to play Ritualist though, because it's a good blocker for Servant, so if they don't have the removal spell in hand, they're going to have to Fan Bearer if they want to get any damage in. And then if they do have removal spell in hand, that just means we got the removal out of the way, so when we do cast the Ceradon a couple turns from now, it's more likely to stick around. And yeah, no removal, so they're just not going to kill anything. We've got a Sheffet Monitor as well for next turn. I guess I could exert it out this turn, but I'd probably rather Ceradon. And, well, yeah, and have the Ritualist untapped next turn. That feels good. And they're going to Fan Bearer the Ceradon down, most likely. And then we'll pass. I think actually main phasing Ceradon was probably the safer play than trying to do it main phase too, because then they could tap down the Ritualist when I move to combat and I wouldn't have the red mana up, so I couldn't cast either of those things. It's one of those weird scenarios where it's actually probably correct to just play your card in main phase 1. Usually when you want to give your opponent as little information as possible during combat, but I think we just didn't want them to Fan Bear down Ritualist potentially. Ooh. Open fire is pretty exciting here. Shutting off this Fan Bear means we're going to be winning on this board state, so I think I'm actually going to Hooded Brawler and open fire here, If I open fire right now, they'll respond by tapping something down with Fanbearer anyway, so we'll do it during their end step. Just play the Hooded Brawler for now. I could send the Ritualist in, because I'm going to have multiple blockers up. I guess I can't, no, because I need all 6 mana. I need to Hooded Brawler and open fire here, so no attacks. I could send Watchers in, trades for Mummy. I don't think that's worth it. We have plenty of creatures that aren't that worried about getting hit by a Festering Mummy. Plus I could shut off Festering Mummy as a blocker if I get a Desert. We know we have 4 in the deck, I think. No, we have 3. 2 green, 1 red. Forsake the Worldly. Exile our Watchers. Alright, I guess. They only have 1 card in grave, so... Exiling our Watchers in response to their removal does not do anything. Lethal Sting the Ceradon. You can't stop that from happening even if I shoot the Fanbearer, it's already resolved. Because it's a cost of casting the spell, you can't shoot what your opponent's putting the counter on to counter it. But I'm still just going to kill Fanbearer here, and then we're just going to exert Hooded Brawler every other turn. And play a Sheffet Monitor. Get in with that as well. They could double block with Mummy and Wayward Servant to kill my Hooded Brawler. But that's just good for me, I think. Pretty much clear the board if they do that. Alright, Fanbearer is gone. (6-4) or 6-5. I think I play the 6-5 first because they can double block the Ceradon well. Oh. Impeccable timing. Yeah, we're gonna play the 6-5 first, because if they double block, they deal 3 damage to it, then put a -1/-1 counter on it, making it have 1 toughness left. So it cannot die to a double block, whereas Ceradon can. Ooh, cycle the Unburden, so we get to keep our Desert Ceradon. Big fan of that. And now I can cast it without tapping Ritualist, so we'll send Ritualist in. And block with the Mummy. -1/-1 counter on the Ritualist so they can block with Servant. We'll play the Desert Ceradon. Grind to Dust would be a pretty big blowout here. They put a -1/-1 counter on 2 creatures and then exile everything that has a -1/-1 counter on it. That would just be a one-sided wipe. Dusk also a pretty big blowout. Both the cards, Grind to Dust and Dusk, are rares, so we're not really going to play around those. That was pretty nasty. Now they can bring back every creature from their grave back to hand, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. That probably just does it. Just get bomb rared out of the draft here. 2 and 3. Just got like 5 for 1 by Dusk. Because they drew 3 and we lost 2. At least I can Magma Spray Servant or Fanbearer. 1/3 blocker. Gonna kill 1 Mummy or keep Servant off us forever. We still have draws that are pretty big outs because we've got cards in this deck just being a big creature deck that are worth 2 or 3 of the cards that they have on their board. So we top deck better than our opponent, but they are in the current lead on board by a good margin. So it might not matter. Is it combat trick to kill Ritual? I was gonna say if Servant can kill Ritual somehow, the Mummies can too. can't think of anything that would let Wayward Servant kill my Ritualist, but not a Festering Mummy. It'd have to be something that puts a single -1/-1 counter on it, or is just a single +1/+1. Alright, well, we've got time to draw into our good stuff here. I guess we have used a couple of our big creatures, so we only have 1 Sandworm, 1 Ceradon, 2 Bitterbow Sharpshooters. Those are all pretty massive draws, though. That's 4 of them. Got 2 final rewards to deal with horror. We've drawn the Sharpshooters, which is great. We've got a Cartouche of Strength, which is big. Cut to Ribbons is massive. Yeah, we're got a lot of good stuff left in here to dig towards. Not completely out of it, but definitely would not be embarrassed to lose this game. Alright, now we definitely lose this game. Cruel Reality is very hard to beat if you cannot kill your opponent very quickly after. Yeah, we have to sack a creature every turn. That's just game. Opponent has a much better, well, much more bomb-heavy deck than ours for sure. Dusk to Dawn into Cruel Reality, not gonna be a winnable match. Unfortunately. Yeah, their deck is a lot better than us. Even their non-bombs are really synergistic. Just black-white zombies here with Binding Mummy, Wayward Servant. Yeah, we'll lose to the better deck here. It happens. Honestly, there's no point playing it out at this point. I draw 1 good creature every turn and keep having to sack it anyway. We have nothing that gets rid of an enchantment, so we're just a goner. It's going to be 2 and 3. A little unfortunate. I think this deck was pretty solid. Just sticking to straight up Rakdos aggro would have also given us a really good deck in this pod. We saw multiple on-crop crashers and stuff, some decent 2-drop creatures. I don't think that it would have led to a deck that was drastically better. I don't think that was the biggest mistake. I think our deck ended up being a pretty solid Jund ramp deck here, with the double Ritualist, the Sharpshooters, the Sandworm. So I'm pretty happy with how the draft itself went. The gameplay, though, we definitely made some errors. I'm not sure about our final loss or our first loss. Those probably would have been losses no matter what, but we definitely could have found a win in the game that we lost the second time. Had I just held up my final reward and played it really safe instead of playing another creature, we could have played around their combat trick and still been alive at 1 life. Obviously, being at 1 life isn't ideal, but our opponent was not a red deck in that round. So we would have survived at 1 life. They'd have like 2 cards in their hand, and they wouldn't have Fanbearer on the board anymore to tap down any of our creatures, and we'd have like 5 creatures to their 1, all of our creatures being a lot bigger. So we could attack them threateningly enough to kill them in at most 3 turns. Maybe we could even kill them in 2 attacks if I played a little bold after that point. But yeah, we could have killed them in like 3 attacks there, so they'd have 3 draw steps to find it out to kill us had I held up the final reward. So that was a pretty big error there, but it happens. Obviously, can't go back and change it, but if I could, I would. We'd have at least a 3 and 2 run. We'd be 3 and 2 at this point, heading into another game after this one instead of 2 and 3 and out. So who knows what could have happened, how the deck could have performed had we gotten some more games to play instead of losing that middle game there. But anyways, as I said before, pretty big fan of the deck. Obviously, the filler creatures are not great. I did take some deserts over them. But honestly, when it comes to filler creatures, the only really filler creatures are Watchers of the Dead, just to have 2 drops. Hooded Brawler and Naga aren't great, but they're not like massively filler. Pretty much everything else in the deck I'm pretty dang happy with at its respective mana cost, so I still think pretty dang solid deck here today. Not bad at all, just some bad gameplay, unfortunately. So that is going to end all of the Amonkhet Remastered drafts, but that is certainly not going to end all the exciting drafts on the channel. It is the most exciting time of the year for limited players and standard players, and most players, to be honest. The next Standard legal set is coming out, Dominar United. It's also going to rotate things out of Standard, so pretty exciting for those players. But the next major draft format is hitting Arena very, very soon, just like 2 or 3 days away now. We have the Dominar United Early Access event thanks to Wizards of the Coast. I will be playing in that tomorrow, so I'll have a draft of that, or you can check the Twitch channel in the link in the description below where I'll have many drafts of that in the Early Access events. Then the day after that, we'll have the Dominar United Draft Guide, and then after that, Dominar United has released. And we're getting head first into the format, plenty drafts and sealeds. We're going to play in the Arena Open. We're going to play in the Qualifier Weekend. All the major stuff you expect from every major draft or limited release on this channel. So huge things on the horizon. If you're interested in any of that, make sure to stick around. You can like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send some more of these videos to you in your recommended feeds. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.